Pictures appearing to show Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor crouched over an unidentified woman have emerged in the latest explosive disclosure of files linked to the late American sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The disturbing images are among more than 3 million highly sensitive documents published by the Trump administration in what officials claim is the final release. The precise location and date of these photographs remain unknown, shrouded in mystery. Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor has been formally asked for comment through multiple channels, but he has not responded to any requests. He has previously and consistently denied any wrongdoing whatsoever. The U.S. Justice Department announced definitively that this would be the absolute final batch of material that would be made public. In and amongst the staggering more than 180,000 images released in this massive document dump are these deeply troubling pictures showing the then Prince Andrew kneeling over and physically touching a female whose identity has been carefully hidden and redacted. There is absolutely no context, specific location, or precise date provided with these images, leaving enormous questions unanswered. Andrew has always categorically denied any criminal wrongdoing of any kind, but this latest massive batch of files once again contains numerous items raising extremely serious questions of judgment and decision-making, not least a particularly damning email exchange from 2010. This correspondence occurred long after his close personal friend, Jeffrey Epstein, had already been convicted in court of serious sexual offenses involving underage children, suggesting he meet privately with a 26-year-old Russian woman in London who he might supposedly enjoy having dinner with. Andrew replies enthusiastically that he would be absolutely delighted to see her and adds tellingly, "Will she be bringing a message from you? Please give her my complete contact details so she can get in touch directly with me." Epstein writes back suggestively, "She's 26 years old, Russian, clever, and beautiful, and yes, she already has your email address. We will continue reducing our communications." The newly released files also contain further shocking revelations about Peter Mandelson, the prominent British politician who last year lost his prestigious job as British ambassador to Washington after it became abundantly clear his friendship with the convicted sex offender Epstein had been considerably deeper and more extensive than previously known or disclosed publicly. The documents include the explosive claim that the sex offender personally sent Lord Mandelson's then partner, now husband, Reinaldo Avila da Silva, £10,000 in cash to cover the complete cost of an osteopathy course. Lord Mandelson has publicly described his friendship with Epstein as a most terrible mistake and grave error in judgment, and says he genuinely wasn't aware of Epstein's heinous crimes at the time. There is remarkably little, though, in these files to pose a real or credible threat to President Trump himself, done apart from some unsubstantiated allegations which the FBI had already thoroughly ruled out and dismissed, nor does his administration say there is anything to definitively prove a wider conspiracy theory. But with so many thousands of documents still withheld or heavily redacted for various stated reasons, Jeffrey Epstein's numerous victims and survivors do not believe they have yet been given the complete whole truth about what happened. When the president signed the bill into law in November, it was explicitly to release all the files without exception. All the files need to be released to the public. They haven't been fully released yet. So that's what real closure looks like. That's what genuine justice looks like for survivors. Whether anyone is actually prosecuted criminally or not, and get the full information out there transparently so the public, the survivors, and everyone can really know and understand what's been going on. With continuing calls for him to give evidence and testimony in America, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has yet to respond to the latest revelations, but he has always strenuously and categorically denied any wrongdoing whatsoever. The massive document release also includes extensive email correspondence between tech billionaire Elon Musk and Jeffrey Epstein. The newly revealed emails show that Musk, who has not been accused of any wrongdoing in this case, discussed traveling to Epstein's private island on more than one specific occasion, including a 2012 potential trip where he asked Epstein directly, "What day/night will be the wildest party on your island?" There is no evidence that Mr. Musk ever actually did end up taking a trip to Epstein's notorious island. Writing on his social media platform X, he says defensively, "No one pushed harder than me to have the Epstein files released publicly, and I'm genuinely glad that has finally happened. I had very little correspondence with Epstein overall and declined repeated invitations to go to his island or fly on his infamous Lolita Express private jet. But I was well aware that some email correspondence with him could be misinterpreted and used by detractors to smear my name unfairly. Gloria Allred, a prominent and well known civil rights attorney, represents many of Jeffrey Epstein's victims and survivors. She gave her strong reaction to the latest release of files. Some of my clients are completely devastated by the fact that the Attorney General and the Department of Justice was supposed to, and specifically indicated that they were carefully redacting victims' names, the survivors' names from all documents. And yet today, with the release of these more than 3 million files, many of the names of my clients who have been Jane Doe for many, many years were in fact published publicly. And this is absolutely devastating to them emotionally. And we have to deal with that trauma now. Because, they had little or no trust in the government to begin with. Now they have absolutely no trust in the government because the government has not earned that trust through its actions. And the Assistant Attorney General today, Todd Blanche, in his press conference said that he hopes that the release of the files will bring closure to the victims. This is absolutely ridiculous because they have devastated so many of these survivors by publicly releasing their names without consent. At best, it was a sloppy job. At worst, it smacks of a deliberate cover-up. A number of questions emerge from this, but first of all, the administration is indicating this is the final batch. Is that likely to be the case? That's what they're officially saying, that they have fully complied with the law, which was that they release all relevant files, except for a few narrow exceptions, for legal reasons or to protect the identities of the victims. But they say this is pretty much it, the end of the releases. What's interesting, I think, in some ways, this story is now playing bigger in the UK than it is in the US. Now, some US news sites I noticed aren't even leading on this story this morning. And I think that's, of course, because of the involvement of people like Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, Peter Mandelson, etc. There are, of course, other high-profile American figures caught up in this latest batch of documents. The Microsoft founder, Bill Gates, for example, in what looks like an email that wasn't sent, written by Jeffrey Epstein. The suggestion in these files is that Bill Gates caught a sexually transmitted disease. He has called that suggestion absurd and completely false. And like everybody involved in this, all are strenuously denying any involvement in anything certainly wrong and very definitely nothing criminal. And actually, these files bear that out. We heard Todd Blanche, or Donald Trump's personal lawyer and deputy attorney general, sort of releasing these latest batch of documents, saying that there is no evidence here of co-conspirators. If there was, he said, we would be prosecuting those individuals. The trouble with all of this, of course, is that we were told last year that there were a potential 6 million documents they were looking at. Now we're told they have finished with the release of 3.5 million of them. So somewhere around 2.5 million haven't been released. For the Justice Department, they will say that's because they're irrelevant or legally confidential or need to be redacted to protect victims. For those who see conspiracy in any of this, they will say they're being withheld precisely for that reason, to continue the cover-up. And so, of course, by I think as much as the Justice Department, as much as the Trump administration wants to draw a line under this, I think this is very unlikely to do so. And we've seen survivors saying that, in fact, identities have been released also for the first time, and a call from a lot of those people also for just more material to come out. Is there any legal route for them to do that? Well as claiming that an insufficient amount of material has been released, they are also complaining that in the material that has been released, despite the Justice Department saying that it's been very careful and has withheld information precisely to protect their identities, it has gone ahead and done so anyway. I haven't myself seen any documents where their identities have been revealed, but survivors are very unhappy about that. Yeah, legal avenues are very difficult. Ultimately, the law seems to give the discretion to the Department of Justice to make those decisions about confidentiality in legal issues. But politically, at least, we can be absolutely certain this story isn't over yet. The release represents a seismic moment in one of the most notorious scandals in modern history. Jeffrey Epstein's web of connections to the rich, powerful, and famous has long been the subject of intense speculation. These latest revelations, while not providing the smoking gun some had hoped for, do paint a disturbing picture of how deeply embedded the convicted sex offender was in elite circles. The emails, photographs, and correspondence reveal a man who wielded significant influence and maintained relationships with some of the world's most prominent figures, even after his initial conviction. For the victims and survivors, this release is bittersweet. While they have long called for transparency, the manner in which their identities have allegedly been exposed has caused fresh trauma. Many have spent years protecting their privacy, only to have it potentially violated in this mass document dump. The psychological impact cannot be understated. These are individuals who have already suffered immensely, and the prospect of being publicly identified adds another layer of victimization to their experience. The political implications are also significant. In the UK, the involvement of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor continues to be a source of national embarrassment and raises questions about accountability for those in positions of privilege. His continued silence in the face of these new revelations only deepens public suspicion. The emails suggesting meetings with young women years after Epstein's conviction demonstrate, at minimum, extraordinarily poor judgment. Whether they represent something more sinister remains a matter of intense public debate. The Mandelson revelations add another dimension to the scandal. A figure who held one of Britain's most prestigious diplomatic posts, having received financial benefits through Epstein, raises serious questions about vetting processes and the extent to which Epstein's connections penetrated the highest levels of government and diplomacy. The £10,000 payment to his partner, regardless of its stated purpose, creates an appearance of impropriety that is difficult to dismiss. Elon Musk's involvement, while apparently more limited, demonstrates how Epstein cultivated relationships across the technology sector as well. The emails about the wildest party on the island, even if Musk never attended, show the kind of lure Epstein used with high-profile individuals. Musk's defensive response suggests an awareness of how even limited contact with Epstein can be damaging to one's reputation. This final release, while substantial, leaves more questions than answers. With 2.5 million documents still unreleased, the complete picture remains elusive. Whether those documents are genuinely irrelevant or contain information that powerful individuals want suppressed is something the public may never definitively know. What is certain is that Jeffrey Epstein's legacy of abuse and the network that enabled it will continue to haunt those connected to him for years to come.